Ready? Close! Prepare for colors! Reset! Home! Order! Home!
Are they gone? You may be seated. Thank you. We welcome all who join us today to remember the events of a day, 9/11, that all Americans should be mindful of. The decisiveness of ordinary people faced with extraordinary circumstances demonstrated the exceptional nature of all Americans who acted as heroes. These ceremonies are more than a remembrance of the past. They are a tribute to both the living and the dead. The solemn responsibility to pass on the traits to the next generation, a willingness to choose duty, loyalty, self-sacrifice, love in the face of tragedy. We have defeated fear and triumphed over terrorism. So even as we remember the events of 21 years ago, we pass on the responsibility to the next generation to believe faith and goodwill will not only endure, but it will prevail. Because we still have first responders who will rush toward danger rather than running from it. Thank you for joining with me today to honor America. I would like to introduce now Emily Thompson, who will read her poem for the 8th grade reflections.
Just a little bit. 343 first responders, 2,000 977 people. Flight 93, 8:46 a.m., 470 miles. 9/11/2001, 19 hijackers, 4 planes. Meaningless numbers given meaning, memory. Make the choice. Ordinary days, ordinary people, unordinary deaths. A sacrifice no one wants, an attack no one wants, a day everyone wants to end. Make the choice. Hijackers chose, civilians chose. Each vote matters, each voice matters. 93. They made their choice, risked their lives. No one survived. 40 against 4. No fear. They are ready. Make the choice. There is no words, only pain, fear, and chaos. Destruction in the streets. Flee. Fight. Run. Help. Guide the people. Stand tall. Don't be afraid. It's your chance. It's your choice. Choose to help. Make the choice. Twin towers shudder, tremble, fall, carrying lost lives with it. No hope. Chaos covers the streets. No one knows, dead or alive. Make the choice. No fear, only courage. It's like the world is dying, crumbling with the falling rubble. Unimaginary. It's not a dream, not yet. A day for history. They weren't afraid. 343, a number they didn't want. They got it. They ran into the flames, the burning rubble and pain. They weren't afraid. They made their choice. Make the choice. Flee from the ruins, the falling world, the flaming remainders. Evacuation order comes. It's time to leave. Make the choice. Choose to help. Choose to guide. Choose to be a hero. Choose who you want to be. It's your choice. Choose your path.
Every year, the American Legion sponsors this event, and we also sponsor Boys and Girls State. We're going to have the speeches presented by our Boys State and Girls State winners from San Luis Obispo High School. I would like to introduce our boys winner, Kyron Blau.
Good morning, everyone. I'm really happy to be here with you today. Thank you again for inviting me. As Dave mentioned, my name is Kyron. I'm a senior at San Luis Obispo High School, and I was the American Legion Post-66 delegate to California Boys State, an experience I was really fortunate to have partaken in. I was asked to speak with you today about decisiveness, and I wonder how qualified I am to do so, especially considering the first responders and men and women in uniform present here today know more about decisiveness than I probably ever will. Regardless, I will do my best. I speak today, to quote Franklin Roosevelt, about a day that lives in infamy. American citizens, young and old, have an immediate connection to the calendar date 9/11. This day continues to be a travesty in our nation's history, but likewise a day to celebrate. I say this because of the decisiveness enacted on that day. By servicemen and civilians alike, this decisiveness reveals the true nature of what it means to be an American. That as a nation, in times of crisis, we come together and make sacrifices for the greater good, that we decide to help others before helping ourselves. Today, I will highlight a few heroes of 9/11 who exemplify this American character, in hopes of leaving you all with a lasting reminder that every one of us, through our own decisiveness, can make an impact in the lives of others, just as the heroes of 9/11 did on that fateful day. To start, let's remember Benjamin Clark, a chef and former Marine who, instead of fleeing a collapsing South Tower, paused to aid a woman in a wheelchair. While he may have died during that selfless act, we commemorate his decision to serve another as an exemplar of the great American character. To start, next, let's take an example of the man in the red bandana. It is said that this civilian, now known to be Welles Crowther, returned to a collapsing tower again and again, and ultimately saved the lives of 18 people before losing his own. Crowther decided to spend the last hour of his life ensuring that others could continue to live theirs, a valiant sacrifice in the name of service. Most importantly, a speech about 9/11 is not complete without honoring its brave firefighters who embody American decisiveness and altruism. 343 firefighters died that day, but their deaths are not in vain. Actually, the opposite is true. Their sacrifice not only ensured the welfare of many, but also gave hope to the American people as a whole. The United States were actually united that day. One's beliefs or backgrounds did not matter. Every American united not only in honoring the victims and those whose decisive acts saved lives, but also in resolving that the United States of America would never allow for such an injustice to occur again. We carry these commitments with us and renew them each year on the anniversary of that fateful day. As a nation, we are always stronger together. As I stated at the beginning of this speech, the decisiveness and selflessness present among the victims, the survivors, and the heroes of 9/11 exists within every American. It is woven into the fabric of our nation. These qualities are outwardly present in some people, like you first responders who I'm honored to address today. And to you I give thanks. Thank you for your steadfast dedication to the people of this great city, state, and nation, even in the face of danger. Others present today might reflect on where this decisiveness and selflessness appears in their everyday lives. 9/11 proves to us that every American has the capacity for greatness in the big and small decisions we make throughout our lives. So, I resolve, let us honor these men and women, these American heroes who gave their own lives to save the lives of others. Let us do so by activating the decisiveness that lies within us, by striving to follow the examples of Clark, Crowther, and the servicemen and women who promoted others' welfare, even at the risk of their own, and by benefiting the greater good in our daily moments with purpose and determination, without regard for individual gain, but instead for the good of all. Sadly, the United States now more than ever is a polarized nation, with seemingly little regard for kindness to those with differing beliefs and backgrounds. In my opinion, to adequately honor the thousands who died during 9/11, and incidentally to honor the hundreds of thousands of servicemen who fought and died in the Middle East on behalf of the U.S., we as a people must unify like we did on that day. Let's honor our heroes by drawing upon the decisiveness present in each of us, by marking the greatness of character within us as American citizens, by determining to act in service of the collective, just as so many did before us on that day that remains in infamy. Thank you again for allowing me to speak.
I seem to have gone out of turn here. I needed to introduce Chief, Deputy Chief Alford, and Chief Scott for the opening remarks and ringing of the bell.
Thank you, everybody. I'd first like to recognize our executive leadership team here in the city of San Luis Obispo, Madam Mayor Stewart, Councilmember Christensen, Councilmember Shorsman, Councilmember Marks, and our city manager, Derek Johnson. 21 years ago, we suffered a terrorist attack resulting in 343 firefighters, 23 New York Police Department officers, 37 Port Authority police officers, and almost 3,000 civilians lost their lives related to 9/11. Families were torn apart. These are husbands, fathers, daughters, sisters, mothers, cousins, nieces. And it'll never be the same. It'll never be the same for these family members, but it'll also never be the same for us in public service. We can all remember what we were doing during that event that morning. For me, I was in the fire station watching TV, getting ready for the shift to begin, and I thought I was watching a documentary, a scenario, a simulation. 8:46 in the morning, Eastern Time, 9:03 Eastern Time. It changed the trajectory for my day, but I was still in disbelief. Then it got real. It got real about an hour and a half later. I come from a line of soldiers. My cousin, an Army Ranger, gives me a call. This is an hour and a half later. Says, hey, you're the only one that understands. I'm being deployed. We are leaving right now from Texas. We are flying overseas. Let the family know. I can only tell you because they won't understand. That's when it became real for me. It became real for all of us eventually because we all realized humanity was attacked. America was hurt. One thing we did, though, is we united. Our country became one family, one goal. We were decisive. We were decisive in our actions. We were decisive in our words. But more importantly, we became decisive in ourselves. As we remember all the members who've fallen before us, the civilians, the community members, I pose a challenge to each firefighter, law enforcement officer, is be decisive. Get better every day you come to work. Our city, country, and more importantly, our families need that. Everyone else who wasn't around for 9/11, who weren't born yet, do something to make our city, our country, and yourselves better. Sacrifices were made for you. Embrace these challenges. Even if it's being a great student, you're going to contribute to our society and make our community better, which in turn makes the world better. For every community member, even through tragedy, our leaders are still here. They're here to protect us. They're here to guide us. They're here to give us the resources to be decisive. And just remember, even with all the sacrifices that were given and the tragedy that happened, we're going to do the same thing next time. We're going to be there to protect you, to be decisive in our actions, to make sure you don't have to suffer, because we're sworn to a duty. And that duty is to ourselves, our country, and our community.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm Rick Scott, Chief of Police. Today is a day of remembrance for September 11th, on this 21st anniversary. You've heard a lot of numbers that we've been up here talking about. 412 is the number. 412 heroes lost their lives that day, both in the police and firefighting service, and countless citizens that came to aid. They aided their communities, and they aided their country when they needed them most. We have a whole generation who've grown up not knowing a life without 9/11, not knowing the innocence lost of a time long ago. Often after a tragedy, people ask, we struggle with words, we struggle with actions. How do we remember and how do we honor those that are lost? The question is, what can we do? What do we say? We're doing that right now. Each of you being here today, you're remembering. And that's exactly what we do for those that have given so much for us. The citizens and first responders who perished that day will forever be remembered. They'll be remembered as heroes and as patriots for a grateful country. On September 11th, it showed us that even the most unspeakable evil could not change the American way of life. In fact, it was quite the opposite. We stood strong and we came together as a country, and our resolve showed the world exactly what it means to be an American. For they may have damaged our steel and our concrete, but not once did they damage our spirit. There were many that day who willingly sacrificed their own lives to protect others and to preserve our freedom and our way of life. The heroes that I know and that I have known, just as was said earlier, are extraordinary people. But they're also moms and dads, sisters and brothers, and they're our neighbors and our friends, doing an incredibly difficult job in a truly extraordinary and heroic way. On this day, we celebrate the first responders who made the decision 21 years ago to run into danger, to run into the chaos, so that others could live. And trust me, if you had an opportunity to talk to those individuals, they knew exactly what they were running into. And they knew that they most likely would not exit those buildings as they tried to save as many as they could. They did this by placing service above self. And I'm honored to say this is what the women and men of our first responders do each and every day, not knowing when they will be called to provide the ultimate sacrifice for the communities and the people that they love. May these brave men and women lost never be forgotten, and may they forever be remembered by a grateful country and a thankful community. God bless all of our first responders. Remember them always, and let us never forget that September 11th and our first responder families for their selfless sacrifice that they provided to us all. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. At this point, we'd like to have a patriotic musical selection by the SLO High School Chorus. Now it gives me great pleasure to introduce our Girls State winner from San Luis High School, Clara Landeros.
Good morning, everyone. I would like for a moment that all of you here today look down at your shoes. What color are they? Why were they chosen? I will go even further in assuming that the shoes you are wearing are not like any of the other ones here. We may simply let that stand as an assertion of our individuality, or we may reckon why that is. Why do we do what we do? What purpose will these shoes serve? With that in mind, what I would like to lead into today is the concept of decisiveness. We all make choices on a daily basis, whether it's what we eat, what we say, what we do, down to the very shoes that will carry us through all of those activities. Though most mundane decisions are trivial, we cannot forget the importance of the simple act of assertiveness has upon our lives. Some things are not conscious choices, such as the tears that sprang from our eyes as we watched the towers quiver and crumble onto the streets of Manhattan that fateful September 11th morning, the cries that were lost to the chaos within the rubble, the phone calls that were never answered. Yet, though those instinctive actions gave way to a collective assertion that we as Americans would never forget, we are stronger together, and every choice we make is indicative of that. We must take decisiveness not as a supplement to our values, but as a core antidote to the division and discord between us. We must take responsibility for our actions and engage with each other in the same way that the men and women did as they fortuitously entered the falling towers 21 years ago. Being decisive is not being devoid of fear. We all harbor terror in our hearts, but the deliberate refusal to yield to it is where we find strength. And it is through that strength that our courage emboldens itself and takes a hold of us. We can gather as a people to remember the heartbreaking devastation of the attacks and decide to never forget. The men, women, and children who were directly affected by this senseless slaughter have no choice but to be decisive. They must live every day with the aftermath of what that day caused: broken families and lost futures. Thanks to the firefighters, the medical personnel, the police, and the everyday American bystander who valiantly defeated fear to run into crumbling towers, confirms that decisiveness saved more lives that day. Decisiveness does not need to be a momentous thing. It can be as simple as a small whispering of the words, "never again." And so we too must face our lives with that decisiveness, that grit, that will, and determination that has been the bridge between a life of sorrow and a life of hope. The gaping wound of a lost mother, father, son, and daughter will never be filled with redundant words or flowers or dollars. And yet, a single assertive action of remembrance can do plenty to nurse the pain. It is undeniable that our world was decisively changed, but we must assert that our spirit is not. The very essence of Americanism is determination, and every single person who risked their lives that day embodied that to the fullest. The American soul was not defeated, it was renewed. We came together as sisters, brothers, friends, and strangers to help defeat a common enemy of animosity and doubt. Our America is insistently bolder, stronger, and more decisive than it was 21 years ago. And we choose every day to stand together under our flag of one united nation, one that can decisively never be broken. I am not here to lecture today, nor do I intend to be remembered for what I have said. I am here to commemorate the first responders, the military personnel, the thousands of other brave individuals who chose to set aside their fear to help others. For all of those who are still paying for their acts of courage. I am here to verbalize the actions and behaviors we must embody so that this never happens again. And so, if we go back to our shoes, let us not forget those which will never be filled again, those who courageously ran across ash-strewn streets and debris, and those shoes that we fill every day. Thank you.
Would Kyron please come back up? As part of the American Legion's continuing commitment to our youth of San Luis Obispo, we'd like to present checks to both of our Boys State and Girls State winners. Kyron? All right. We recognize leadership, and these people are leaders. They're the future of our country, and we're very proud of them. Thank you. It's now my duty to introduce Dr. Eric Prater, Superintendent of Schools, who will be giving the dedication. Is Dr. Prater here? I guess he was, there he is.
Good morning. I'd like to thank the City of San Luis Obispo and all of its leaders. I'd like to thank all of the parents and families that came here today, this morning, to honor this important event and the lives that have been lost and impacted. I'd also like to thank the San Luis Obispo Choir and our student leaders that you heard today. Truly amazing, right? As superintendent of San Luis Coastal Unified School District, I'm honored to be here today. I'm honored to be a part of a community that recognizes the importance of decisiveness when it's called, for compassion when it is necessary, and for the understanding that we all need to come together as opposed to argue with each other and try to defend things that are not defensible. I am honored to be here this morning, and I thank all of you for being here. Thank you.
We're now going to hear some music from the Central Coast Pipes and Drums. All right, Chiefs, if you would. Thank you. And I'd also like to invite now the San Luis High School Chorus to come up and grab your flowers. Now we'd also like to invite all of you to join us as well Please help yourselves to the flowers. Bring one up, set it on the beam. Thank you for coming.